Okay, there's something I've been wanting to talk about. And, reading around online and knowing that there's some movies coming out and some TV shows that are out right now, and people want to keep throwing around the term Mary Sue. This character's a Mary Sue, and it's getting used a lot right now for Rey in Star Wars, Michael Burnham in Star Trek, Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel. I'm not going to argue against them being exactly that. There's also the Gary Stu character, which is the male version of a Mary Sue. And this is when it all gets into, oh, it's all for political correctness, and it's a little bit more simplistic than that. So, the definition from dictionary.com, it is a character who is too perfect, unlike my speaking, and without flaws, originally written as an idealized version of the author in fan fiction. Comes from 1973, a story called A Trekkie's Tale. It was a Menagerie Part 2. It was a fanfic written about a lieutenant named Mary Sue, the youngest lieutenant in Starfleet, who was 15 and a half years of age. I remember when I was a kid and I saw the Star Wars movies, and I came out of it wanting to write. And I'd always written little short stories and whatnot. And I wanted to write my own epic tale set in space. And for those who don't know, I do have books published on Amazon. I have, I think, 7 of them um, under my name, which are about a lot of them are about the whole space thing, and I have a character in it, the main character of which, Mike Translow. I look at that character, I look at this definition, I look at what people are complaining about, and I go, maybe I created one too. And and then the other book that I have that is not a science fiction book, Run. I don't. There's no character in that that's really a Mary Sue. It's just a very quick in terms of time in the story, and the characters don't become heroic or anything. It's just trying to not die, and that's the whole thing. So, it's easy to end up doing that. It is easy to have a main character that you build your story around, and that's your hero. Now, here's where I think there's an issue. Okay, and I'm going to mention this with these characters before I move on to others in history. Okay, and I mean recent, of course, modern history. There are characters in literature. They talked online. There was an article I was reading about Little Women, how there's a Mary Sue character in that. There are Mary Sue characters in a lot of really famous old novels, and they're characters that we don't pay much attention to that side of it because we've become so accustomed to the stories. So Rey, I think the problem with Rey is not that she fought. Everybody looks at the fight at the end of episode 7 and say, "Oh, Force Awakens ruins it because here's Kylo Ren going into a fight and he's bested by this ultimate Mary Sue character." Well, here's the only thing with that. He had been hit with a blast right in the stomach, and he was bleeding pretty strongly, and they point that out a few times before she even fights him, and he had been fighting with Finn. The funny thing is too is that people say, oh, Finn holds his own with him. Not really. The fight lasts like 15 seconds. He doesn't, and they bring about that he's a stormtrooper who's fought with that type of a weapon, not like a lightsaber per se, but that type of hand-to-hand combat. So it's not that unbelievable to me that Finn's able to at least make him think about it for a second and a half before he gets sliced across the back. The biggest reach with that scene with Finn is he should have been dead. By all accounts, yes, I agree with people who say Finn should have been dead based on that lightsaber blast. And there's a whole video on Star Wars not being understood by Disney not understanding, and lightsabers, really they don't understand, and I agree. I 100% agree with that criticism. I'm fine with that as a criticism. Rey's problem is they don't give her a backstory, and I get why. Because the whole idea is who are her parents, and I think J.J. Abrams had intended for her to be either the daughter of Hans or the daughter of Luke. So that's why when she knows the controls and what's wrong with the Millennium Falcon, I didn't think much of it because I thought she's related. She's related to them. And I have a funny feeling that in episode 9, they're going to retcon out that part where Rian Johnson had it that she's the daughter of nobody, which is dumb. and try to explain, because honestly, if, and you have to have read the books to get this, if you are force attuned, if you are born connected with the force, like Luke was, like Anakin was, and like it's clear from the way that The Force Awakens is written, Rey is, you're just going to naturally have talents you shouldn't at an earlier age. You're going to learn things a lot faster than you should. They get into this in the books that followed Return of the Jedi, that get into Han and Leia having kids. And they had Jason and Jaina, the twins, who learned to become Jedis. But then they had a son they named Anakin Solo. And he's really, really strong with the Force, even as a toddler. And he doesn't know how to control it, so chaos breaks out. And eventually he kills Chewbacca. And he's prone to these rages and these fits of anger, and eventually there's a big fight between he and his brother and sister, and so there's this whole storyline there with Han and Leia's kids, which is why when Rey came in I thought she's related. So the fact she's force attuned would explain why she's so fast to learn the Jedi mind trick stuff, because her life is in danger. Therefore, the force that she's connected to tries to protect her. If you've seen Shazam, there's a scene where he's falling out of the air and the suit protects him from dying. Okay, I'm not giving away spoilers. I'm not telling you guys any context for it. Just there's a scene where, the suit has protected him from dying, or the Shazam character has protected him from dying. The Force does the same thing. The Force kept Anakin alive when he should have died on Mustafar. Only thing that kept him alive is the Force. That's explained in the books, which is part of the problem with Star Wars in general. There's too much stuff. You have to read the books so that it doesn't seem stupid after. And Star Wars has had this problem from the very beginning, and we'll get to that. Now, Michael Burnham in Star Trek, I have absolutely no... I make no apologies for her. She is an unlikable character. She's the reason why I gave up on season 2. The Red Angel thing, I'm done. That's it. I'm done. And now apparently they've changed it at the end of season 2 to try to get away from canon errors. They were just destroying canon. They brought in Spock and they brought in Admiral Pike just so that fans of the original series would say, "Oh, it's Admiral/Captain Pike and Spock. I'll watch this." And it's stupid. And then the way that they make it so that the fact we never heard about Discovery in the original series, they explained it. That's stupid. Stupid. So I cannot make any excuses for Michael Burnham. I think she's a lazily written character, because the actress herself, I like her a lot. I remember when she was on Walking Dead, and I liked her. I thought she was a good character, so I know I can like her as an actress. It's not on her. The character is terrible. But she's not alone in Star Trek Discovery. Nobody on that show has any real depth. They're all kind of cartoony. They don't feel like real characters. The original Star Trek series, everybody felt like a real character. But even though James T. Kirk isn't on the board, you could argue James T. Kirk has some Mary Sue-like qualities. He's pretty darn near infallible, and he's pretty damn cool, and he's pretty good with the ladies. And really, honestly, by the way that we're defining an annoying character right now, James T. Kirk, both in the new movies played by Chris Pine and originally played by William Shatner, to me qualifies as a Mary Sue/Gary Stu character. Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. I still enjoy the movie, and I'm still planning on buying it. I understand why people were put off by the character. I thought where the weakness is between Veers, who is the alien character, and Carol Danvers. I thought the better way to tell that tale probably would have been to have it where you show the Carol Danvers story, and then she ends up being Veers and comes back to being Carol Danvers at the end. I think it would have been more effective. I understand they were trying to do like a mystery reveal all the way through, but I think if they'd abandoned that and just done a straightforward story, I think it would have been better. I don't think Brie Larson made any friends before this movie came out. I think the way that she handled the press was bad. I don't expect a whole lot better out of Avengers Endgame. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of depth added to the character there. But again, I don't put that on her. And I think it was a solid enough movie for a Marvel movie. I think that there is definitely more criticism thrown on a female character who's really kind of a Mary Sue than a male character. But I really think that just a tweak in the way that was written. Just forget the whole we don't know what her real name is, because everybody knows going to the movie it's Carol Danvers. Start out with her as Carol Danvers. Show the backstory. Don't show it as flashbacks. Just show the backstory. She ends up on that other planet. Her memory starts cracking through, and then she ends up going back to Earth to save the day. That would have been great. You could have even had it end with her coming back to Earth after getting the signal from Nick Fury in real time. Not some kind of a forward at the end of the movie, but you don't have to have mid credits scenes anymore, Marvel. You can just have a movie that exists within the movie. We should be able to leave when the credits start. It's terrible. I'm only partly kidding about that. I think the mid credits and end credits scenes were fun in the beginning. Now it's just aggravating. They don't really forward the story very much, and it's just sort of, hey, here's a teaser for the next. And it's not. I don't know. I don't like it. Katniss Everdeen got mentioned a lot, and it makes sense because here's Katniss Everdeen who's just hanging out, and she's just normal everyday girl. And then it's all right. I stand in tribute because she doesn't want her sister to get killed. And then she's an expert at everything. She's just great at it right away. And it is aggravating. And I say that as somebody who likes the Hunger Games. It is aggravating. And somebody who thinks that Jennifer Lawrence is fantastic. I love Jennifer Lawrence, but yeah, it is a frustrating character. Now getting into, and I have them in red, the characters that I see as the originals, the old Gary Stu's, Mary Sue's. Luke Skywalker absolutely is. Luke Skywalker's a farm boy. Yes, he races around the desert in his little T-16 and hits swamp rats and whatever. But he's never flown an X-Wing, and yet when he gets in one, no training needed. Go destroy the Death Star? Got it. And he's a better pilot than everybody else in space, which is a little different than flying around the desert. And at no point is it shown that Luke Skywalker flies around in space. He hasn't been off the farm. Look at how Uncle Owen treats him. No way he's been allowed to fly to space. So the connection between Rey and Luke is part of the reason why when I met Rey in Force Awakens, I thought, okay, so she may be Luke's daughter. Now, for people who say Luke wouldn't have a daughter, yes, Luke had a daughter in the original extended universe. And if there's anything I've learned in the new Star Trek, it's that they're borrowing a lot from the extended universe they blew up. People who are upset right now that Emperor Palpatine is coming back for Episode 9, he was not dead at the end of Return of the Jedi in the original canon. So after that, you have Dark Empire. Dark Empire is the resurrected, the cloned Emperor Palpatine. The idea that he has all these clones, and he was still alive, and Luke had to fight the clones, and he actually turned and became a Sith Lord, and then Leia had to fight her own brother and talk him out of being a Sith. Yeah, Luke Skywalker ends up becoming a pretty complex character, but in the beginning, he's a farm boy who blows up the Death Star. Just, okay, and it took how much training? How much training did we see him do? None. Then he spends about 5 minutes with Obi-Wan learning to fight blind. He spends a day or so on Dagobah with Yoda. And the way that Empire Strikes Back shot, has it been a day? Can we say for sure that he was there for a day or 2 days? It's not very long. Yoda is not training Luke for very long, and then he's ready. And of course, we know that Darth Vader bests him, and then later on, years later, they meet at Return of the Jedi, and now he's ready to become the Jedi Master. But who trained him to get there? They don't. It's just, oh, he made his own lightsaber, so now he's as strong as Vader. But Yoda's not training him. He doesn't go back to see Yoda until in Return of the Jedi when, oh, he's dead. And Obi-Wan doesn't see him until he's on Dagobah after the death of Yoda. So he's just, again, there are books in between that explain it. But to people just watching the movies, Luke's just, oh, he's a Jedi now. And back in 83, we just accepted that. It was like, okay, all right, he's the Jedi now. Wesley Crusher. Everybody in the original Star Trek Next Generation series, seasons 1 and 2, we all hated Wesley. We couldn't stand... if I had a nickel for every time that as a person watching the show I said, "Shut up, Wesley," it was quite common. I'm thinking make maybe $3 or $4 off of that, but still, it's $3 or $4 you don't have right now, and I don't have right now, right? So Wesley Crusher was absolutely a Mary Sue. He's just brilliant. He's fantastic. He can figure out other dimensions. Oh, of course he can. Oh, and then the funny part is they keep letting him mess with the warp core, and every time he messes with the warp engines or the warp core, he almost blows up the ship and destroys life as we know it. But they keep letting him do it because it's Wesley. Wesley's great. He's fantastic. Riker was close on that too. William Riker had some of those characteristics too, where he was almost too perfect. He was, fantastic and a handsome man and all that stuff. And he was almost in the category of this. Harry Potter gets mentioned. Now, I don't watch the Harry Potter movies, and I admit that. So I'm just going to leave that there, and you guys can debate in the comment section below if Harry Potter's truly a Mary Sue or not. Because to me, from what I've read and from what I've seen, yeah, kind of. Alice from Resident Evil, one of the major complaints people have, and I agree. And I say this as somebody who has tried 4 times to watch the last Resident Evil movie. I own it. Tried 4 times to get through it. I cannot get through it. I've watched each part separately, but I've never been able to actually sit through the whole movie because it's too stupid. And part of what kills it is that Alice starts out in the first movie as she's just a really good fighter and you don't know why. Okay, so all right, now you worked for Umbrella and security. Makes sense, that's fine. So she's pretty good. By the third movie, she is so far and above and far and away stronger than everything else on planet Earth. So in the 4th movie, they took away that superpower from her, supposedly. And I remember when I was watching the 4th one, I was like, oh, good. All right, so now she'll be more fallible and not quite so over-the-top crazy good. No. It got more aggravating because then it was like, well, how did she dodge that? She doesn't have this T-virus ability anymore, so how did that happen? How did she do that? And then I had to start fabricating things in my own mind where I'm like, I think the virus is getting stronger again. I think she's getting her superpower back. So that was kind of where things were going with her. And then for me, and I know as somebody who I read the Lord of the Rings books, and I remember with the Aragorn character, and then you watch the movies, and it's like, I don't remember him being this prominent. And it made a lot of people mad when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, because it really wasn't about the hobbits. And the original books, it's one book. It's just so bloody huge that you have to split it up. But the original books, they had singing in it that wasn't in the movies, and I remember reading a lot of this and going, this is kind of silly. How is this going to work as a movie? And the answer is you just cut it out, and you put in more Aragorn. So Aragorn becomes this fantastic, and the elves kind of had that going for them too, where they were fantastic and perfect. And it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating at some point because it really becomes the Aragorn movies, which the book really wasn't. And to some extent, the Hobbits kind of have some of this too, in that they just know the Hobbit town and that area, and now they're winning races with ring wraiths, and I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this where normally you would expect somebody to die and they don't. And Aragorn, but there's a lot of Deus Ex Machina in it too, and I'm going to do a video at some point on movies that drive me nuts because of Deus Ex Machina, which is the God Machine, which is this phantasmical thing that just fixes everything. If you're a Doctor Who fan, it's the sonic screwdriver, which is less and less of a screwdriver and more of a get you out of a jam as the years go along, and it does get aggravating. Where you're like, he's just going to use the sonic to get out of this. Oh, how did I know? G.I. Joe. One of the things that drove me nuts with G.I. Joe when I was a kid is how perfect all the Joes were, and how Cobra had all these weapons they never fired. And it drove me mental. I couldn't watch it. At least in Transformers, they hit each other, and their aim was crap. But in G.I. Joe, they would just stand there with the gun while they're being charged at by Duke. And I remember as a kid saying, just turn your gun and shoot Duke in the face. And this is me when I'm like, I don't know, 12, 13. And they just stand there and Duke jumps up and he jump kicks both of them in the head and knocks them off to whatever they are. Wherever they're on the rafters or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this show. I can't do it anymore. I so badly wanted one Cobra soldier to just turn, shoot Duke in the face, and then have the rest of the Cobras going, oh, these work. Anyways, Indiana Jones. There's a Big Bang Theory that talks about how Indiana Jones didn't actually have anything to do with anything in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That the Nazis still found the Ark, and he didn't prevent anything, and nothing that happens in that movie is affected by him in the least. He actually ends up being just sort of along for the ride. I'd go a step further and say that Indiana Jones, as an archaeologist and a teacher, he's pretty good at fighting, and driving like a madman and avoiding death, and there's a lot of things with Indiana Jones that to me make him like a Mary Sue. Absolutely. Neo in the Matrix. Why did we hate the Matrix sequels? Do you know what the main reason for me is? The Matrix sequels, Neo is unstoppable. And once you get into Matrix Reloaded and you realize, okay, so he's fighting 1.5 million Smiths and nothing's happening. Okay, so that's it then. So you know that when Neo's fighting, there's no danger. None. And if somebody else is in danger, Neo's just going to come in and save the day anyways. So, And Neo has no flaws. There's none. And by the end of the third movie, they're barely hiding the fact that he's supposed to be like Cyber Jesus. Like they're barely hiding the fact that this is some kind of a religious parable that they're telling. And it's not even very clever in how they try to conceal it at all. Wesley. So there's two characters named Wesley. Princess Bride. So in going through all my movies, I was thinking, Wesley and Princess Bride. I love Princess Bride. It was one of the most fantastic movies ever created. But the idea that Wesley goes on a pirate ship and he comes off as the Dread Pirate Roberts and he's fantastic at fencing. And I know it's a comedy and it's not meant to be taken overly seriously. Doesn't mean the character's not a Mary Sue. Doesn't mean the character doesn't magically have all of these powers and that he's not just an idealized version of the author in all likelihood. And it's a fantastic, fun movie. But Wesley's way too smart. And the fact that building up an immunity to iocane powder. Come on, Wesley. Come on now. And it's funny and it's great and it's hilarious. But again, it still does make him an overpowered character. My wife's suggestion was Robin Hood, who is just the best at everything and then doesn't seem to have any real flaws. And there's numerous movies with Robin Hood of varying degrees of success, varying degrees of quality, and sometimes he's more overpowered than others. So there you go. I wanted to do this because people keep talking about Rey and Michael Burnham and Carol Danvers, and there seems to be a forgetting that there are plenty of male characters in movie history and in literature too who have been guilty of this. And I'm saying that as an author, Mike Translow may very well be a Mary Sue character. And I wrote numerous books. I've been writing for that character since I was, I want to say 8 or 9 when I created him. Well, no, it would have been after. No, I was 10 because I had seen Return of the Jedi, which was 1983. So I created the character when I was 10. He kind of comes off as kind of perfect. And it's one of those things. But yeah, it's an interesting debate to have. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below regarding the whole Mary Sue character argument. And anybody that I don't have up here that you would say that is a Mary Sue character. They're perfect. They don't have flaws. It's aggravating. It takes you out of the movie. And if you're a wrestling fan, you'll notice these three here. Hulk Hogan drove me nuts in the 80s because he was perfect and it drove me insane. John Cena, I think that's what made people mad about John Cena. That's why people wanted him to turn out to be a bad guy. Because as a good guy, he was so sugar sweet and so perfect and he didn't lose. And Roman Reigns right now is going through some of that same treatment. And I know the fan reaction's been better because he went through leukemia treatment and we respect him for coming through this and coming back to wrestling so fast. But you can already sense that some of the resentment towards the push that he gets and the idea that he's this perfect Superman, it does make him out to be kind of a Mary Sue in the wrestling world, or Gary Stu as it is. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, we'll see more of these characters, not less, in the future. 2 reasons for that. 1, these characters made a lot of money. 2, there's some lazy writing as well. Give a character a backstory, make them flawed. We'll cheer for them more in the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.